The presupposition is that God is the one that orchestrated it. But that's not necessarily true.
That's what I always say.
If you attach everything that happens to God, we've got a problem.
Right.
Wherever that belief came from is not doctrinal. It's not scriptural. To put all the blame on God is like, hold up. Let's take a couple steps back here, because what do we live in? A fallen natural world where God allows individuals to have agency. And if agency is the only way to have a true connection and relationship with somebody that's not forced, you're going to get people that do some awful things. God cares about all of his kids, but he does not excuse sin, but he's compassionate to those who have sin.
Are you living for God, or are you living for other people's opinions? Welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today. It's called Verses to Live By. And here we're sharing scripture verses that people might struggle to understand, or they feel like they need a place to go to learn more about the scriptures. I don't consider myself a scriptorian. You think you might be a scriptorian. So I think that's awesome. I love having scriptorians on here. And yeah, I think the main goal is just to help people be able to understand the scriptures more, feel God's love, and really be able to dive into verses that they might have a difficult time understanding, and pretty much hearing other people's perspectives on those verses, I think is so important as you grow closer to God. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there.
Bet. So my name's Brayden, local Utah County boy from PG, and I went to high school, Pleasant Grove, served a mission in South Africa, came back and was a seminary teacher for a while. Thought that that's kind of what I wanted to do. And that was the direction I was going to take my life with. And I also work for a company called HXP, if people are familiar with that, and running humanitarian trips for youth internationally. And that's a big part of my life too. So I love being around youth and young adults and helping inspire that rising upcoming generation, because they got a lot going for them. So that's what my whole life is pretty much centered around. Became a coach about a year ago. And so between speaking and coaching and podcasts and whatnot, we're just trying to do good and bless some people. And yeah, it's a good time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I like to always ask people on here, what's your 10-year goal? Just where do you see yourself in 10 years? Paint me a picture of what you want it to look like.
A really happy, loving father and husband with a couple little kiddos.
How many?
Running around. Well, in 10 years, 2 or 3 maybe.
Yeah.
2 or 3 little kiddos running around. 10 years. By that time, I'll be 33. So yeah.
Awesome, man.
A couple little kiddos running around, and then just really full scale like this business, and just build a community and doing seminars and workshops, and have to hire out coaches because I can't coach them all, and speaking internationally and doing gigs like that.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
That's a 10-year dream.
How's the dating life right now? Are you married, in a relationship?
We're slow cooking.
Okay. Yeah.
We're slow cooking right now. We got some potatoes in a crock pot, and that's something me and my friends will talk about. It's like, so yeah, I'm talking with somebody right now and it's going good.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Nice.
So, but yeah, dating in Provo, it's kind of like what you make of it. You can be a victim or a victor.
Right.
It depends on what your mindset is. A lot of times I was a victim.
Right.
And
walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people in the Provo demographic, there's a lot of Utah County and whatnot. It's a war zone. It can be. And for a long time, it was just like again, we were talking a little before this, like all the dating stories and all the funny fails. Like I've got stories upon stories for days about all the fun fails that happened along the way. But there's nothing that's taught me more about myself and God than those stories and those failures and this time of trying to figure out what do I want, but learning how to become the right person, and at the same time get outside of yourself, and it's not about me. And how do I let God cook and not control the narrative so much, because he is the author and the finisher, yet he does want us to be agents that act. But so many times I was trying to take the pen away from God and just kind of write my own thing, which I thought was pretty good. And by that, I mean, go after somebody and thinking that this would work out, or I really, really wanted it to be them. And then it didn't end up working out.
Yeah.
And
that's
yeah,
awesome.
we've been taught a lot and it's been really good.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love, like, God's always got a much, much bigger plan than we can see. And he sees all the steps ahead. Whereas like we only see a couple steps ahead, and we can write a book that might look really, really good in our heads, but God's got a much better book coming.
Yeah, totally.
Whether you want it or not, that his book is coming, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. And quick dating story, a little off topic, but I'm from Portland, Oregon. So there people are more like looking for relationships. When I moved here, I found a girl real fast. I thought she was really cute. Kissed her. Immediately in my head, I was like, okay, we're already in a situationship. Like it's going pretty good. You know, it had been like a week, right? And then I was talking to her and she's like, yeah, I'm going on a date with my ex tonight, to just so you know. And I was like, whoa. So it totally threw me off, right? I was like, wow, this is how people,
this is crazy.
People date different out here. You know, it's not the same as Oregon at all. And so I learned very fast. I met the love of my life 3 years ago. Got married a year and a half ago.
Cool.
It's been amazing ever since. But you go ahead and start us off with your favorite Bible verse, what it means to you, and any stories that you might have with it.
Yeah. There are two that I gravitate towards right now, and one that actually I was planning on sharing, but then God was like, I need you to share a different one. So when I went and served, when I started my mission, I was assigned to go to South Africa, and this was kind of to the middle towards the end of COVID and around that era. So there was struggles with visas and flights and getting out, and a lot of missionaries were getting reassigned. So I'm in the MTC and I get an email from my dad, and he says, hey, did you see you were reassigned? And I was like, no. I was like, where? He's like, North Dakota. Wow. I was like, what? So I had no idea. And like, I don't know if they got the email earlier than I did, or if I was just distracted for a little bit. Anyways, I get the email. I'm getting reassigned. Civil unrest. Wow. I had my visa, like had the passport, like we were all ready to go. And he was like, yeah, we don't know how long it's going to last, but you're getting shipped up there for who knows how long, but the next little bit.
Was this during or around COVID?
Yeah. So this was the middle towards the latter end of 2021.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
I guess when this happened was July of 2021.
Okay.
And so I get shipped up to North Dakota with a couple of there were a couple guys in the MTC who I knew were going to South Africa as well, same mission. And we all got reassigned up to North Dakota. Funny enough.
Wow.
And I remember feeling so sad and stressed and anxious. Like in my mind, I've been picturing this exotic African experience, only to get, I'm sorry if anybody's from North Dakota, but just like a vastly different image came. And like, there ain't nothing out there in North Dakota. It's like, it stretches forever. And I got there, we flew in. And after we met the mission president, talked whatnot, we got actually to go to the temple, which was really cool. And I'm feeling all these emotions, like sadness and also like kind of bitter, but also like stress. Like, how long is this going to take? I packed for Africa. I didn't bring clothes for North Dakota. And we're like going into fall. If I stay here for a couple of transfers, I have no winter clothes. Yeah. This is like -40, average. And so I'm cooked if I'm not out of here. So I was like, God, I need out. Yeah. So I'm sitting in the temple after we do a session. We're in the celestial room and I'm having all these thoughts and feelings and I'm just a mess. Mm-hmm. I get in there and I take one of the Bibles that's just laying on one of the desks or couches or whatever. And I just decided to just whomp it open and see what God had to spit out for me.
Yeah.
So I just turned it open, flipped to a random spot, and it was John 14. And the very, very first verse that I looked at was verse 1. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid.
Yeah.
And to me, in that moment, it was, the words were coming out of the page. And because I was like, those were the things that I was feeling. I was feeling extremely afraid and very troubled. And when God tells you in a celestial room in a temple, when flipping to a random spot, he's like, let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. It's like, okay, God, you must know some things that I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
That became one of the most impactful scriptures for me. And I would say what became a pivotal scripture for me in the months to come on that mission, because the troubles and the feelings, they didn't stop. They may have changed based on circumstances in different areas and different struggles, but that scripture remained a constant. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid.
Yeah. And again, with that, it's just, God's always going to know more than we know, right? He sees the big picture.
Yeah.
I think that's so amazing that you were able to have that experience, even though it was tough at the time. And I fully believe when we're going through trials and challenges, it's going to seem really difficult at the time, but you're always going to be able to take something away from it. And that part is where we grow, right? Yeah. And that part is so beautiful, even though it's painful in the time. And it's like suffering means something, right? Because you're going to be able to take something away from this. You're going to be able to learn and to grow and to be able to draw closer to God. And in some cases, people will draw farther away from God, right?
True.
And I think it's so important on this podcast that we're talking about ways you can, avoid drawing away from God and drawing towards God when you're going through these tough times.
Totally.
Right. And some people, so I guess a question I have for you, some people really, really get confused with when they're going through a trial and a tough time. And they're like, why is God putting me through this trial? I want you to answer that. Go ahead and answer that. If I'm going through something really tough and I come to you and I say, why is God making me go through this right now? I just don't get it. If there's really a God, why is he making me go through this?
Yeah. So first off, I'll tackle that question because there's a presupposition in there. The presupposition is that God is the one that orchestrated it. Right. But that's not necessarily true.
That's what I always say.
And so if you attach everything that happens to God, we've got a problem.
Right.
Because wherever that belief came from is not doctrinal. It's not scriptural.
Yeah.
And so to put all the blame on God is like, hold up. Let's take a couple steps back here, because what do we live in? A fallen natural world where God allows individuals to have agency.
Right.
And if agency is the only way to have a true connection and relationship with somebody that's not forced, you're going to get people that do some awful things.
Right.
You're going to get a world where naturally it's just fallen.
Yeah.
And so you will have fallen experiences, but to tie that to God and place it on him is faulty.
Yeah.
Because of that reasoning. And I think it's interesting that you asked that question, because one of the scriptures that I had in mind goes somewhat into this topic. So one of my favorite stories, Mark 6, they've just fed the 5,000.
Right.
Crazy, insane miracle, probably blew a lot of people's brains, and they were like, wow.
Yeah.
And he sends the disciples away. He's like, I'm going to go up and pray on the mountain real quick. But you guys go get in the boat. Like, I'll meet y'all over there.
Right.
And he says he sent them away, departed into a mountain to pray, right? Storm comes. They're in the midst of the sea. And there's an interesting part. If you go to verse 48 in Mark chapter 6, it says that, and he saw them toiling in rowing for the wind was contrary unto them about the fourth watch of the night.
Yeah.
So fourth watch, if the day is constructed from 6 to 9 p.m. being the first watch, and then 9 to 12, and then 12 to 3, and then 3 to 6.
Yeah.
So somewhere in between 3 to 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So at minimum, they've been rowing 9 hours.
Yeah.
On a lake.
Yeah.
In a storm. And the first part of that verse, and he saw them toiling. For 9 hours, he's been watching.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
He's just looking. And I'm sure we could probably all think of thoughts that those fishermen train, like this is their thing. Like I'm probably sure they thought they were going to die.
Right. The teacher is always silent during the test. Right. And so I think that's such a great analogy to look at it, right? When you're going through something, when times are tough, teacher's not just going to give you the answer. That would be cheating, right? He's going to, let you endure through it a little bit, right? To test your faith, one, but to make sure that, you're going to stay by his side, right? Because he's always going to be by your side. The devil's always trying to creep through the back door of your house, right? But guess where Jesus is? He's waiting at the front door. And he's a gentleman, so he's not going to break his way in. He gave you agency for a reason.
Yeah.
But he'll wait like a gentleman for you to invite him in.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to turn to him at those times.
Yeah. And to add to that, I think it's interesting when you go back to the topic of God, why would you allow something? Again, there's presuppositions there, but with the question, it's like, God, why is this happening? Or why are you not intervening? Or why do I feel like you're silent? I feel like are all other common questions that will come up. And you have to ask yourself this question then based off of this story. If you feel like God is silent or he's not intervening, but you're in a situation where you feel like you're going to die, you're like, I made this analogy probably a couple of weeks ago when I was teaching a class, and like, a friend, like when you got an event planned and you like call them up and you be like, hey, like you going to be there in 10, right? And they're like, yeah, like I'll be there in 10. Yeah. So you hang up the phone, 10 minutes goes by, and then you call, he's not pulling up. 5 minutes later, you call him, you're like, hey bro, you still coming? He's like, yeah, dude, I'm just leaving right now. You're like, okay. So you hang up, and you call him back because he's still not here, and you'd be like, hey dude, where you at? He's like, hey, sorry, I'm out of town. Like I'm somewhere else. And I think a lot of the times we have these kind of phone calls with God and say, hey God, where you at?
Right.
And I don't see you coming here anytime soon. And so when you feel like God's not intervening or you feel like he's not showing up, ask yourself this question based off of this story. If you feel like God's not showing up or he's not answering or intervening, then what must God know about your situation that you don't?
Right.
Because obviously what seemed so disastrous and grueling and challenging to those disciples on that sea for 9 hours must have not been too much of a concern for him.
Right.
And so if it's not for him, how come it is for you?
Right.
And so take that and say, okay, if my situation is like this, then what does God know and trust about in me? Not just the situation, but what does God believe about me? That he's allowing me to do this and grow through this.
Right.
That must mean that God thinks a lot about you.
Right.
So,
and that's awesome. I think it's amazing that every single part of you, every single part of your personality, every single little thing about you, God created for a reason, right? And you are your only you. There's no other yous in this world, right? There's no other me's in this world. There's no other people that think exactly like you.
Yeah.
There's no other people that think exactly like me. There's no other people that have been through exactly what you've been through except for Jesus. And same for me, right? And I think that that's just an amazing feeling. One, when you're making mistakes, you can turn to him in repentance and say, okay, I understand, or you're understanding me when I'm having a change in heart.
Yeah.
Right. but two, just when you're going through that trial, when you're going through whatever issue it may be, medically, physically, mentally, right? He's always going to be knowing what you're going through. And he's the only one that's going to be knowing what you're going through. And that's so beautiful. So a verse I have is in 3rd Nephi chapter 11, verse 38. And it says, "And again, I say unto you, ye must repent and be baptized in my name and become as a little child, or ye can no wise inherit the kingdom of God." And I think that verse is so beautiful because it talks about becoming as a little child. I think there's so many things that we think about as adults all the time, right? There's so many worries, so many stressful things that are weighing on us. But when we were a child, we had so much less of that, right? We had our own problems, right? I hated when people would steal my ball at recess. It was terrible, right? That was the worst thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
Now it's not a big deal at all, right? If someone steals my ball that I'm playing with, I'll just ask for it back, right? But these things that we're going through, we need to remember, we need to be as a child. We need to put ourselves in a mindset to where we're not caring about what other people are thinking. One, that's super important so that we can let God work his plan in our life instead of trying to write our own story, thinking about what other people are thinking about us.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we're constantly thinking about what other people are thinking for us, are you living for God or are you living for other people's opinions?
Yeah.
How terrible would it be to be on your deathbed and regret a lot of things because you were living for other people's opinions, right? Everyone dies one day, right? We're all going to end up passing away. So you need to go do what your heart is feeling like it needs to do, because guess what? God put that on your heart for a reason. He has plans for you. And if you're ignoring that feeling in your heart when you're drawing close to God, you're ignoring the purpose that he really wants you to follow. And I think that that's just so important to remember. So a question I have for you is, what does it mean to be like a child to you in that verse?
Yeah. A couple days ago, I was at you could say like a devotional night. Some people were hosting like an event, and they walked us through this almost meditation experience, but with the Savior in mind and picturing like him coming to you in certain settings and places and what he would say to you. And there were two admonitions, if you will, that I felt like God was telling me to do that relate to this. And they were lean on me and counsel with me, talk with me about the things that are going on. As children, they got some hearts, man. They got some passion. They got some things they love doing. It's not like kids don't somehow have a drive to do things that they don't want to do or want to do. Like they got dreams, bro. They got plans, but they recognize the being who's going to get them there.
Right.
And so for me, being like a little child, I can't do this without God. I can't. I can try, and I can actually do a pretty dang good job, but I can't get to where he wants me to go, and I can't make it better. I can do a good job, but he can make it so much better.
It's like writing your own book when he can write you a much better book, right? You can write a good book. He's going to write you such a better book.
Yeah.
I love that. And I just love the thought of like children are so trusting, right? It's like dogs. Let's talk about dogs first, for example. Okay. Dogs can have the most abusive owner, which is so sad, but they'll still love their owner, right? Children kind of have that same process, right? That they can have horrible parents. They're still going to love their parents, right? That trust is still going to be there for them until they figure out what's really going on, that trust is still going to be there for them. So when I think of when it says become as a little child in this verse, that's what hits me. It's like, I need to trust like I trusted when I was a child, right? I need not blindly, right? Not blindly with people, but blindly with God, because God knows what's going on more than I know what's going on, right? And who you surround yourself with in your friend group is super important. And to let God help you find those people is so important. You can find your own people, and they might be really good. They might seem really good, but maybe God's got someone different for you, right?
Yeah.
But that trust you have as a child is just, there's no trust like that, and everyone's had someone in their life past 15 years old that's screwed them over in some way or somehow, right? Whether it was a relationship, whether it was a friend, even a family member for some people, right? And that trust starts to fade, right? That mentality of trust starts to go away. So when I look at that verse, I think of trust. And I think of the hope you have too, right? You have so much hope as a child, right? You tell yourself you're going to be an astronaut, or you're going to go to the MLB, the NBA, the NFL, right? You really, really believe it, right? Have that same belief in God, right? I think that's so amazing. So another verse I have ties in with this a little bit. It's in Romans 12, verses 18 through 19. And it says, if it be possible, as much lieth in you, live peacefully with all men. As a child, dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. So vengeance is a crazy thing, right? It's so natural for us to want vengeance, to want to get someone back for when they hurt us. Even as a child, you want to, go punch someone that punched you. And I think it creates this peace in your heart. When you just let God handle it, right? When you say, all right, that was a terrible thing that I just went through with that person, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to let God handle it. And what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that when it comes to vengeance?
I think it's natural to want to have, I don't know what the sophisticated word for it is, but to have what was done naturally have happened back.
Right.
And
that's the natural man thought too.
Yeah. So let God do his thing. If God, well, we know that God cares about all of his kids, but he does not excuse sin, but he's compassionate to those who have sinned. And so to those that feel hurt with things that other people have done to them, that's normal and that's natural. And from a coach perspective, I would say, please feel and process those things. Right. Don't bury that and push that down to a level where you're going to have to uncover that problem a little bit later, but work through it. And we believe in a God who believes not just in mercy, but justice.
Right.
You can't have one without the other. There are equal laws that God abides by. So you have to believe that in the end, all will be right. But instead of living a life where you constantly are just like, well, in the future, God will take care of it, do something about it. Why don't you work on yourself? Why don't you get to a point where you could actually, maybe if possible, love that individual?
Right.
Instead of living a life full of misery where I'll say, I'll just hate you forever, God will take care of it eventually.
Yeah. But when you are hating, when you do have that hate in your heart, that hate slows down the plan that God has for you. right? Because when you're focusing so much on that hate, when you're letting it consume your days and your nights, right? That's also consuming the plan that God has for you and the one that he wants you to follow.
Mm-hmm.
That hate is something that we need to let go, right? And sometimes that takes time, right? Sometimes someone will do something that hurts, and it's important to process that. It might take a couple weeks to really let that hate go from your heart, but it's important to always remember to work on that hate, right? Because it says somewhere in the scriptures, I can't remember which one it is. I'm just thinking of it off the top of my head, but it talks about when you're angry, sleep on it, right? Don't throw that anger out right away. Sleep on it. Think about it because one, everyone's always coming from some point. So that person that did you wrong, they might think they did the right thing. Depends on their past, depends on what they've been through. And God understands that on Judgment Day. He understands that now. And so when you think someone did you wrong, right? They could have had a reason for it that made sense to them, and you could have just been on a different path, right? And sometimes we look at that as, oh man, they just screwed me over right there. But to them, it made sense, right? And so that's why I love when it talks about like God's justice, right? His justice is perfect. So for you, question I have for you is, when you feel contention in your heart, how do you relieve yourself from that? How do you take the time to relieve from that? Because sometimes it takes time. But how do you get to that point where it's just like, okay, that's okay?
Yeah. I think about it. I don't push it off.
Yeah.
If you say, I'm going to deal with this next week, you have it now contained in a jar, sub-buried,
right,
until next week. So I process it and I think about it quickly. You also have to ask yourself, well, how come that brought about the emotion of anger? Because here's the point for me. It's a hot take. People don't have fears. They have thoughts. And I would use the same thing for any emotion. Like, people don't have anger. They have thoughts. You have thoughts that spur angerous emotions.
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, well, what are the thoughts then that are making me angry? It's not somebody else made me angry. That's a victim mentality. If somebody else makes you do something, you're a victim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you can come a step back and say, okay, that was angering to me. How come?
Right.
And really take a step back. Now, this requires like a lot of cognitive, like, you got to slow down and think about this.
Yeah.
We're not usually, when you get flipped off on the freeway, your brain has not been trained to slow down and think, okay, hold up. Why did that anger me?
Even worse than flipped off, a thumbs down.
A thumbs down.
Thumbs down is so much worse
Thumbs
for some
down
reason. Makes
on
me
the
think
freeway.
more.
What are they going through?
Yeah. Right.
You have to ask yourself, what's a different story here that I'm not choosing to believe? Because the only thought that you're believing when you're angry is the one that makes you angry.
Right.
You're not considering any other options. And so in processing anger and any sort of emotion, you have to ask yourself, well, how come that's angering to me? Feel it, process it, and ask yourself, is there any other way or possibility of what else could be happening?
Right.
And that for me is how I process through things. Because I think a lot of people could look at some of the things that happen to me and say, or even just when friends will drive with me on the road and I get cut off, but I still remain pretty collectively cool. It's like, it's because I have control of what's going on up here.
Right.
And so if you can learn how to really be the master of your mind and become aware of the thoughts that you're thinking, somebody else, it wasn't getting cut off that made you angry.
Right.
It was a thought that said something else to you. Because here's the thing, a lot of times too, is a lot of times we'll have a situation happens and think that the situation is angering, but it's a lot of the times, what are you telling yourself about yourself from that scenario? Yeah. It's not that you got cut off. It's, I'm telling myself that I must be blank.
Yeah.
And that's angering, but it's not the action.
And the other thing is, anger and fear, they don't come from God. Kind of like we were talking about earlier. doesn't always come from God, right? If you think it comes from God, that's a problem alone, right? Mm-hmm. Anger and fear, I fully believe anger and fear comes from the devil, right? And there's another verse, I think I have it somewhere in my notes, but it talks about how God doesn't give you anger and fear. He gives you peace and love, the spirit of peace and love. The spirit of anger and fear are coming from the adversary, the devil, right? And so I believe that it's very important to understand how the devil is working day to day in our lives, because there's a bunch of small things he's doing each and every single day, and how he's thinking to really be able to process some of the emotions and thoughts that you're going through, right? Because when you can understand, you can fully understand the scriptures, right? You can be a scriptorian, right? You can feel like you have everything known about God. But you also need to know a ton about how the devil's thinking, how his thoughts are working, so that you can avoid running into those problems, right? Not necessarily avoid, but you know what I mean? Just be able to be on the lookout for those. And when those thoughts come, you can say, okay, this isn't from God, right? And I'm going through this. And it's the same with people, right? Same with your friend group, right? If you have a friend that's constantly inviting you to bars or clubs, right? Is that person from God? Or is it a distraction from the devil to steer you away from the plan that God has for you? Right? There's so many distractions the devil will throw at us each and every single day, because he is terrified of what we can do with God's help. Right? And I love that thought of just like, okay, yeah, the devil hates me right now. And I love that thought. Something about that just makes me so happy, right? I'm just like, I'm doing exactly what the devil doesn't want me to do. And that gets me excited, right? But yeah, it's just understanding where your thoughts are coming from, where the friends in your life are coming from, where the people in your life are coming from, and really being able to assess, okay, this is from God, or okay, this isn't from God. And the other beautiful thing is prayer, right? You can ask, and I don't know about you, I've had a lot of experiences with this. When I was dating around, I would ask God, I'd be like, God, is this person supposed to be in my life? The next week, they would or wouldn't be in my life, right? With friends and relationships, right? So God protects hearts. I think that's so beautiful to understand, because he cares about your soul. He cares about your heart, right? And he's going to let you go through some things, right? Like the 9 hours when they were paddling, right? Because he sees the bigger picture, right? Sometimes you have to go through things in order to meet someone and have that same bond with them, right? If you went through a car accident and let's say your future wife went through a car accident, that car accident sucks at the time, but you can relate on that level, right? That might not be the best example, but you can relate on that level, right? And I think that's just another way to look at that. It's a way to take it from a 2D or 3D perspective and turn it into like a 5 to 10D perspective, right? So, okay, I want to shift gears a little bit with you. Any thoughts you have before I? Okay, yeah. So in Matthew chapter 7, verses 3-5, it says, "And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thine brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye." So this is one of my favorite verses. I love this verse because it talks about how we should not be judging other people when we are making mistakes ourselves, right? No one is perfect. There's always going to be some mote in our eye that we need to work on, something that we need to work on. So we should never, ever be judging another person, especially when we don't know what circumstances or things that they are going through. Right. And so I think it's so important to understand we need to guide people like Jesus did when he was on this earth instead of judge. Who did Jesus sit with when he was eating dinner? A lot of times in the scriptures, right? He was sitting with a bunch of sinners, a bunch of people that made mistakes, right? And the Pharisees actually questioned this. And he said, well, I'm not here for all the righteous people. I'm here for the sinners, right? And we're all sinners. We all make mistakes, right? And so I just think that verse is so beautiful and so eye-opening to me when I think about that. So a question I have for you is, from your experiences, when you see a friend or family member that's doing something wrong according to the law of God, so according to the commandments, how can we guide them instead of judging them?
One of my favorite quotes says that the love that doesn't try to change you changes you. So if you can come from a place of love without expectation of change, it changes. Because eventually that person will get to a spot where they may recognize what is or isn't happening, but they have somebody in their corner that they know loved them regardless and wasn't trying to fix them, that they can come back to. And so to guide, you, number one, have to be an example of it. You got to practice what you preach.
Right.
The love that doesn't try to change you changes you. And again, have that idea and mentality that, look, as President Uchtdorf said in his bumper sticker story, don't judge me because I sin differently than you do. And you may see somebody going off in their own way, but you need to, again, look at the moat in your own and see, are you in a position to help? Like, I know you feel like because you have X and Y problem, then I must be a good standard for you to go and change, and I want to fix you, but fix yourself first and then love.
I love that. That's amazing. Okay. Last question before we're wrapping up. This is one that I've been thinking about for the last couple of days. And my wife actually brought this up last night. So, I mean, I won't say names. I'll broaden it a little bit, but there's a creator. Actually, I won't even bring that up. Let's say there's a pastor that he loves God, right? Obviously. And he goes to church, but it's one of those pastors that kind of rips on the LDS church, right? And we know there's Christian churches out there that rip on the LDS church, right? And that's kind of the direction I'm heading down. So there's a pastor. He talked the first half of his lesson. He's talking about how great God is and how he'll save and he'll do all these great things for you if you turn to him, and you'll not have to worry, and there's all these beautiful things that are coming. The second half of that lesson, he's talking about how LDS is bad and how they're doing all the wrong things, believing in Joseph Smith, believing in all these extra things that don't make sense to me. My question for you is, what spirit do you think is in that room? Is it the spirit of God? Is it the spirit of the devil? Is it the spirit of contention? The spirit of what spirit do you think is in that room? Because he's talking about God, right? He's talking about how amazing God is. We do that. But then he's also talking about how there's this one religion that's not good and you shouldn't follow it. So what spirit do you think is in that room at that time after that lesson?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I would have to be in that room, but there are stories and examples that come to my mind. You can have James talk about how the devils also believe. They believe in a God, but their actions don't. So there's a spirit of words and that's why vain repetitions are talked about, because it's like you can be talking about good things. You can do good things, but for the wrong reason. Right. And I think you can Pharisees and Sadducees, they did everything right, but without a form of godliness.
Right.
So you can talk God and Jesus all day, but it's the motive behind it. So it's a spirit of whatever motive you're trying to create.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Luke,
for being on this podcast. Really appreciate it. And hope we can connect more. Do you have any other thoughts or questions that you want to bring up?
God loves you. Dream big, fail big, and lean on God. Because I promise you that men and women who turn their lives over to God will discover that he can make a lot more out of their lives than they can. Thanks, President Benson. And yeah, you're a daughter, you are a son. And remember, you had an identity and have an identity before labels got put on you. Go out and get it.
That was awesome.
Thanks, Luke.
Yeah.